Caracalla, while in Parthia, was murdered at the behest of one of his bodyguards, Macrinus. Macrinus would be the first Roman emperor to hail himself as Roman emperor without being named as an heir or by being decided by the Senate. Despite his equestrian background, Macrinus was accepted by the Senate for two reasons: for the removal of Caracalla and for having received the loyalty of his legions. The Senate had no choice. However, within a year of his reign, he named his son, Diadumenian, a 9-year-old boy, to be the emperor of the Roman Empire. Macrinus and his son, Diadumenian, are the only two emperors that never would step foot in Rome. They spent their entire reign in the east. And after Macrinus was defeated in the Battle of Antioch in 218, Diadumenian was sent to the court of Artabanus of Parthia to ensure his safety as he was on the run from his revolting legions, led by none other than the main character of this story, Elagabalus, Varius Avitus Bassianus, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus Augustus. And on his way to the court of Artabanus, Diadumenian was found by legions sent by Elagabalus, who also was a young boy himself, 16 years old actually, sent out his legions against a 9-year-old. Just imagine this scene. You have a 16-year-old young boy, priest and a leader of legions, sending out a hit on a 9-year-old boy who's fleeing, who's the Roman emperor, and they found him on his way there. He never actually made it to the court of Artabanus. He was killed on the way there. And now, Elagabalus, who had defeated Macrinus and his son, was now hailed as the Roman emperor. Elagabalus, whose grandmother, Julia Mesa, the sister of Julia Domna, has the royal line, tracing him back to Seleucus and Ptolemy, which was very intriguing for Romans. They loved Elagabalus. He was extremely popular. Here's what Herodian has to say about Elagabalus. And so Macrinus fled from battle. Both armies continued to fight. The bodyguards and spearbearers, whom they call praetorians, fought for Macrinus. These picked men making a courageous stand against the rest of the army. The remainder of the troops fought for Elagabalus. But when those who were fighting for Macrinus saw neither the emperor nor the imperial emblems for some time, they did not know whether he had been killed or had been fled the battlefield, nor did they know what course they should follow under these circumstances. They had no desire to fight for a man who was absent and were ashamed to surrender. Betrayed, become prisoners of war. Informed by deserters of Macrinus' flight, Elagabalus sent heralds to advise the praetorians that they were fighting vainly for a cowardly fugitive. He solemnly promised them security and amnesty and offered them service as bodyguard. Convinced, the praetorians switched their allegiance. Elagabalus then sent men in pursuit of Macrinus, who by that time had fled for some distance. The fugitive was finally captured at Chalcedon in Bithynia, desperately ill and exhausted and by his continuous flight. His pursuers fought him, hiding in the outskirts of the city, and cut off his head. It is said that he was hurrying to Rome, putting his faith in the people's enthusiastic support. But when he attempted to cross over to Europe by the narrow Propontic Gulf that was already close to Byzantium, They say that the wind was against him and carried him back to Asia and his fate. So, by mischance, Macrinus failed to elude his pursuers and met ignoble end a little later while striving to get to Rome, where he should have gone in the beginning. Thus, he owed his downfall equally to bad judgment and bad luck. Such was the fate of Macrinus. With him, his son Diademanius. Now the entire army went over to Elagabalus, proclaiming him emperor, and the youth assumed control of the empire, after affairs in the east had been set in order for him by his grandmother, Julia Mesa, and his advisors, for he was young in years and lacking in education and administrative experience. He delayed his departure for only a short time, and Mesa was eager to return to her familiar imperial life at Rome. The Senate and the Roman people were dismayed at the report of these developments, but submitted through necessity because the army had elected to follow this course. They attributed the affair to the weakness of Macrinus and said that he alone was responsible for what had happened. Leaving Syria, Elagabalus proceeded to Nicomedia, where he was forced by the season of the year to spend the winter. Immediately, he plunged into his mad activities, performing for his native god, Elagabalus, the fantastic rites in which he had been trained from childhood. He wore the richest clothing, draping himself in purple robes, embroidered in gold. To his necklaces and bracelets, he added a crown, a tiara glittering with gold and jewels. His dress showed the influence of a sacred robe of the Phoenicians and the luxurious garb of the Medes. He loathed Greek and Roman garments because they were made of wool, in his opinion, an inferior material. Only the Syrian cloth met with his approval. Accompanied by flutes and drums, he went about performing, as it appeared, orgiastic service to his god, Elagabalus. Elagabalus, also known as Deus Sol Invictus, the invincible sun god, oracular deity of Emesa, Syria. His sacred symbol, the conical black stone that fell from heaven. His cult was established in Rome from the later 2nd century. In 218, his hereditary priest at Emesa, Elagabalus, became the emperor. Elagabalus made the god supreme official deity of the empire, with precedence over Jupiter himself. This short-lived promotion, including the translation of the sacred stone to the Palatine, was ended by the assassination of Elagabalus. Although this cult survived to Aurelian and was brought back into the forefront, which means no other than this emperor, Elagabalus, who is the gateway between the traditional pagan Roman religion to the duality that we will later see under Constantine between Sol Invictus and Christianity. Both of those gods come from the East. Obviously, Christianity coming from Judaism. But the Sol Invictus religion has its roots in the Elagabalus rites. Before Elagabalus, Roman religion, as we know it, pretty much stays intact from the time of the Roman Republic through the Augustan regime. During the reign of Augustus, we see a lot of religious reforms, but we still see this pantheon with the Palladian, with Jupiter as the high god, and Dea Roma, Mars, and those are the deities that are traditionally worshipped throughout the Roman Empire up until Elagabalus. Elagabalus transforms the rites of religion